it doesn't take very many of those to have the private cloud concept sort of start to break down around the edges. So what we look at is, okay, well, this transition from data center to private cloud has been very successful on the compute side, but on the networking side, we have some very, very core fundamental problems to solve. And that's really where we see things, this sort of virtual switch sense of, okay, there's an architect who's actually on the central team looking at the data center as a whole and understanding both the physical topology and the virtual topologies on top. But then there are application teams, and really they don't really care about the substrate underneath them. They really care about, here are my servers, here's my network. If I do something wrong, I'm not going to hurt my neighbors. If my neighbors do something wrong, they're not going to hurt me. All I need to worry about is just making my application, getting it up and running, and keeping it healthy. And I can take out a lot of the variables that sit on my left and on my right.
Now, will your initial marketing efforts be targeted more towards enterprise, service provider, or like traditional network service provider, cloud, ASPs, and data center providers? Where's your main area of focus going to be?
So we really focus we're entirely on the enterprise. We focus on the enterprise data center, the sort of partially virtualized, not 100% virtualized, but partially virtualized enterprise data center. And we focus on the enterprise campus LAN.
Okay, so you have a campus LAN application as well. I see that. I think the data center, there's a lot of room up for grabs because the traditional networking team only has so much influence in the data center. So there's a lot of other influencers that help to make decisions there. Big inflection point. And then tell me, obviously this is probably a very popular analogy, but I'd like to hear your perspective on it. I think enterprises will be a little bit ripe towards controller-based networking because of what's happened in wireless LANs. They've already basically gone through the same transition from fat APs to thin APs that basically wiped fat APs out. And I think it's much the same thing, and I think they're going to be ready for it. If we draw the proper analogies, do you think? So
I used to be, my former job was as the product manager of a number of the lines of Cisco's wireless LAN controllers. I couldn't agree more.
Very good. Cool. So I think that's all the questions I have. Do you have any other plugs? Any features that we missed?
Yeah, I appreciate it more than anything else. I would just say the biggest thing that I'd plug is this show. What's happening right now is a seminal moment, really sort of a coming out party for OpenFlow.
That's funny. That's exactly what I said in my article about OpenFlow.
Perfect. It's perfect. That really sums it up. When you walk over to that Interop Net Labs, right, when you see the sheer number of vendors that are sitting there in those racks, this is the start.
I think that's. I think I said it's going to go from a technology that only the industry strategists and have heard about and academics to something that becomes one of the biggest buzzwords. And it's gonna. I think this was going to be the coming out party for it. And I really think so. I think within a few months it's going to be the big buzzword on everybody's tongue. Last question. I thought of one more that I'd like to ask. Out there on the show floor. I've been anticipating in the initial things some controller-based networking. I already saw from Rajesh what Dell was doing, where they were basically doing a port-to-port VPN, so you could access, say, a cloud service provider's, get a physical hardware provisioned as though it was on your local LAN. What other interesting applications are there out there, other than just your controller model and integrated load balancing as a primitive? What else have you seen out there that's kind of interesting?
I look at that demo as one of a whole class of interesting areas that says, here's how we can dynamically recarve broadcast domains. And it doesn't sound as sexy. What's the big deal there? To me, it says that we can take very, very complex network topologies in the physical sense and overlay them with, hey, here's the usually more intuitive and simple, here's the broadcast domain that I want. And I think that we're seeing a whole series of variants of that theme out in that lab and out on the, in a couple of other booths on the show floor. And that to me is a really, when you start to see the variants, to me they all kind of come, a number of these variants come from this central concept that I think is actually going to be very, very powerful. And pretty exciting. That's just something that you strictly cannot do with networking today.
Awesome. Well, it's been an exciting talk to you. I think we're probably going to get kicked out of the room here pretty soon. So thank you for taking the time. I for one am very excited about what OpenFlow is going to do to the industry. Hopefully it'll bring a lot of new competition, a lot of new innovations, and really from I think networking has been the slow boat, falls behind Moore's law and Hitachi's law a little bit. And what I hope is that OpenFlow takes it and we actually start to surpass Moore's and Hitachi's law and start to become really the leading force in the elements that make up the cloud solution. So
I hope as well.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.